Go subscribe to Will's Fukery.
I guess welcome back to Will's Fuckery, episode 7.
To the fuckery of fuckeries.
And the train wreck. The train wreck that is Will's Fuckery.
Always.
So, man, this week was pretty good.
Yeah, this week was kind of fucked up. I'm just going to kind of jump into something real quick. I don't want to spend the whole episode talking about some mental shit, but I had this fucking... So I posted, I don't know, to you, I guess, TikToks, and we put them on YouTube about the mental health, like part 1 and part 2. I guess as a follow-up, like a part 3 type shit. I'm on the first medicine. It gave me headaches like a motherfucker. So I threw in the towel. Like, I couldn't do it. It was fucked up.
Yeah.
So the second one, I was getting up like an hour before my fucking alarm was even going off. I was getting up at like 2 something in the morning, like just laying there. And then I'd get to work. And like I couldn't even go into the fucking building. I'd crash out. You're good, man. You can make a little noise. It's fine.
We got a guest in the studio today.
So it was a little weird, man. It was just, I felt fucking drag ass like the whole time. I mean, I'd go to my car at lunch for the most part, fucking crash out. It was terrible. But so the other side effects, like, I don't know. I guess I kind of took it. I don't know how I took it. I guess it bothered me because I told my daughter about it. But I don't know. You hear people say, like, all the time, like, when they're about to look at me liking, like you, like, you hear people say all the time, people come back, you know what I mean, before you die. So I've heard it multiple times. Well, like, for like 3 or 4 fucking days, I was having dreams of fucking people that were dead. And nobody was, like, showing me like the pearly gates or like the steps to hell or anything, but I mean, it was people that fucking died when I was a kid. I mean, even down to the point it was I was in like a bowling youth group when I was a kid, and I had this Alan Pleat was the guy's name. He was this old like Jewish redhead dude. I mean, he was my coach, like teaching me how to bowl better. But like, he died, and like I never thought of him for like fucking years. I mean, this was over 30 fucking years ago, and all these random fucking dead people are showing up in my dreams within like 3 fucking days. So I told Lo, I was like, look, I know I talk a lot of shit, but like, if I die in the next couple of days, like, I'm not telling you to find certain religion because I'm not going down that road, but like, obviously this is a sign. Like, look for fucking signs. Like, it freaked me the fuck out. So obviously that was the last day I threw in the fucking towel. So
Yeah.
I've been off these meds now for I say like 3 or 4 days now. And I don't feel like I'm swooping down yet, but like, I just feel like I'm all right. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm gonna get through whatever. But my next appointment, like, he loaded me up for like 3 weeks, and I don't know where dude is, so it's on like FaceTime and shit. But I don't know if I should just kind of ease back and see what happens, kind of like see where I go, or if I should try to jump right into another med. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So that was kind of like a fucked up little bit, because these fucking dreams were detailed. I mean, besides like,
Well, very vivid. Yeah.
oh my God, but see, besides like my mom and dad, I mean, like, I'm talking about people, even people like I didn't even, I guess, that were dead before me, people that I didn't meet, but you know, growing up, people show you pictures and like their faces and their fucking detail, and like, it was wild, man.
Yeah.
So I was just like, yeah, fuck feeling like shit, fuck getting visited by the dead, like, but yeah, I just didn't know how to take it. That's why I told Lo, like, hey, if I die, like, there are signs. So
Yeah.
But-
Hey, shit, man, you never know, man. We don't know.
no, and I still don't know. I mean, that could be, but I haven't had the dreams like the day after I stopped taking it. I haven't had fucked up dreams, and I've actually been sleeping in and hitting the snooze button since I've been off this med. So yeah, it obviously wasn't the right one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Definitely for some
Medicines-
side effect shit.
Yeah, medicines like definitely affect like everybody differently. Um, I know the medicine that I was on, man. It's like I said, it's been a while, like maybe 7, 8 years ago, and that was a low point anyway. Like I've always had those issues where I've kind of struggled and mentally like I've had like things there, but like I've always kind of coped and just put my head down and was like, I'm gonna get through this anyway. And like when I was a teenager, I had like a few moments, and there's a story I'm not gonna get into right now. We'll talk about it another time, but like it's like my one of my best friends during this time, like he knew something was off when he saw me, and we were hanging out earlier in the night because he was helping me with something, and it's like I just remember being in my bedroom and like thinking maybe like, and that was at like 19, 20.
Right.
I think this is right before I think this is after I moved out of that party house that I talked about previously on another episode. But I was just in a bad way, and I wasn't surrounded by a lot of support or people who understood, and my parents didn't know how to deal with it. And in their eyes, past generations, you had those issues. Those issues didn't exist in their mind because they weren't culturally appropriate to them. It wasn't a normal thing.
Yeah.
Where it's looked upon very differently now. So in their mind, you're like, oh, you're acting stupid, or you're just being dumb. Like, do you need to go to a sane asylum? Or like they didn't know how to handle it, and they didn't
Got this
believe
padded room for you.
Right. They didn't know how to handle it, and they didn't believe that shit existed. So in their mind, they were like, you just need to kick yourself in the ass and deal with it. And
Man up.
right.
Yeah.
And so for me, being like, I guess more sensitive to shit anyway, like music, everything, like, I don't know, man. I sat in that room, and my friend just, like, I already said goodbye earlier to him, like a few hours before. But it's like he hit me, like he just texted me. I was thinking about at that moment, like, maybe I should just end it. Like, I don't think anybody, like, all the shit I'm going through, I don't know how to handle. There is no good, like, upside to this whole thing that I was going through. And I just felt useless to myself and to everybody around me. And I was just at my darkest point. And usually I could, like, talk myself off the ledge of being, no, I'm being stupid. Like, but that night I couldn't. And my friend just shot me a text. And the text said, whatever you're thinking about doing, don't do it.
Right.
Like, I know something's up. I don't know exactly what's going on. Because, even though I would share a lot with him, I felt at that point in time, there were certain things he didn't like discussing, and it would upset him. So for me, I felt I didn't want to be any more of a burden than I already was, sometimes as being a friend and, like, asking a lot of him. And he was always good for it. He didn't care. But, like, to me, I always felt like I want to be the person that people come to. I don't really want to burden anybody. And I know there's that trade-off. Like, when you have a real, true friend, like, you can't be bashful. Like, there are times you need help. And the worst thing that can happen is them to say no. But for whatever reason that night, he sent that text message as I was thinking all this shit and saying nobody's going to miss me, all right? And then I started thinking about my parents. Like, would they really miss me? They're always pissed at me and shit like that. They're always disappointed. I'm a black sheep in the family, all this shit. And it doesn't feel like they're ever, like, they've been supportive, but they weren't, like, I had no idea that they were being supportive. They never really told me a lot that they were proud of me and shit like that. And that always kind of hurt. So, like, I'm just like, and then I started thinking about my friends. Like, oh, but they would miss me. And some of my friends are closer to me. They're like family to me. So it's like, and I thought of my friend who texted me, and I was like, yeah, that would devastate him because we were really close. I mean, we grew up, we became friends in, like, first grade, and he's like a brother to me. So, like, now that we've gotten older and we're in separate areas of phases of our lives, like, we don't see each other a lot, but we pick up where we left off, as good friends do. And, like, but he's always been there. I try not to, like, reach out to him too much for shit like that because we're grown-ass men now, and I don't really, like, I've been through so much shit. I know how to deal with shit now. Like, even when it's at its worst, I just know to keep trudging through, and there's going to be bad days and shit, and sometimes I'm going to feel like I'm crazy for feeling the way I do. But I know, like, once I get through a day or two, usually I'm like, it's like some sort of switch has been turned on and I'm like, oh, I'm fine now.
Yeah.
Like, so that's how I cope with shit. And I tried the medicine, right? And it made me really sick. I was working 2 full-time jobs at that time because I was stupid, and my wife was working, and we wanted to get the hell out of where we were at. And we had Ian, and he was like, he was maybe 3 or 4. I mean, he was little, but I mean, he always had one of us home. But with me working 2 jobs, I was trying to pull back because my wife was working so much to kind of give her more time at home with him because he didn't see her a lot,
Yeah.
but for a few hours in the morning, and that was it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this because I need to do this for a little bit just to get us caught up and to get ahead so we can get out of where we were at. And I don't know if it was just being like sleep deprived because of all the hours I was putting in and just my appetite was changing. I was losing weight. And then as I started taking that medicine, and I took it for maybe about, I don't know, a month and a half, it just made me feel sick and I couldn't keep any food down. Anytime I did try to eat and I was hungry, it was coming right back up. And I felt embarrassed. Like, I didn't want people to know I was taking it because of the stigmas and stuff. But my own perception at that age, I was like, oh, well, I've seen people who take some of this stuff and, I'm kind of like, well, why the fuck are you taking it? But the truth is, after all the shit I've been through, some people do need medicine. And it does take a while for them to find shit and get the dosages right. I don't think it's for everybody because our chemistry is very different. Between
for sure.
body.
Plus, some of the side effects are fucked up. I started reading.
Yeah.
And I went through and I see a lot of things are, I don't know, kind of like dick control. You can't get hard or whatever. But
that'd be it for me. I'd be
well, just alone, that'll make somebody depressed. But
right.
But I don't know. I used to be like, what the fuck? Commit suicide. And I get it. I've had many suicidal thoughts, but deep down, I don't think I would ever have done that. I always looked at man, this motherfucker's rich or he's got this in his life. What is he doing? But the beginning of the year this year, everything that I felt like I was holding on to, that mattered of why I wouldn't take that next step was it just was gone. And then it made me hit a different level of
consciousness.
I kind of understand why they did it. At some point, what's important, you kind of let go of it. It's not important, whatever.
Right.
But I went and got tattooed. And I know they say getting tattooed is kind of like therapy type shit, but this guy, Norm, he owns a tattoo shop. It's like an hour and a half away, but I kind of found him on Instagram. I liked the style he was doing. I kind of wanted to finish up this arm and work up his thing. So we were talking, and we were kind of just instant conversation. It was great.
Yeah. You can just connect with some people really well.
It's ridiculous because, like I said, I talk pretty much to a lot of people, but just the shit he was kind of going through and I was kind of going through, and then over maybe the next session, maybe I kind of got deeper with him, but that was when I felt like the world was just fucking crumbling. My Lego fucking land bricks were falling off, and then just all of a sudden, I was upstairs about to take a shower and I got a text, and it was him. He was like, "Hey brother, I just want to check in on you, make sure you're doing good." And I started to cry. I wrote him back and I was like, "Dude, I fucking appreciate you so much for this. I needed this." And he was like, "Oh, not a problem." He's like, "I could tell your headset when you were here last time, you weren't here." So there is people who care that you know what I mean? There's some kind of connection, but
right.
Just from that text, I'd forever, if that dude needed help with carrying in his fucking groceries, you know what I mean? I believe that point, it was just, I don't know if I needed to hear it or what, but there was somebody, you know what I mean? And he was far enough off, family and family and friends around that I could talk to, that I know
would
like,
be there for you.
yeah, at the end of the day, I'm his customer. I'm paying for a service, but we went further than that. I mean, it was great. Like, I follow him on Instagram. I mean, he posts shit of and his artwork's amazing, but he posts shit that his daughter does she's fucking amazing, and she's in like high school, and she does some amazing work. But
Nice.
I respect this dude to a whole nother fucking level.
Right.
I mean, like I said, we connected, but that reaching out just then was something that I kind of needed, and just the timing. I mean, it was. I almost felt blessed. You know, I'm not going down that kind of.
Right.
And that's another thing that, I mean, like politics, we kind of seen a lot alike, but that's not me farting. That's my chair rubbing against the.
Yeah.
But like, he's actually religious. Like, he's a smart as fuck guy. But I mean, he was even dropping Bible verses on me, which is great. I mean, we talked about it last time. Like,
yeah, mad respect to their own.
But he tied in like his life. I mean, he's gone through drugs. He's gone through a bad relationship. I mean, the shit he's went through. So it's helped him get to this point, which is great. But yeah, dude's amazing.
It's great. I think it's really good when you're able to bond, and I find that as time has gone on, it's gotten harder. I don't know if I'm just different, and because I'm, like I've mentioned before, I've gotten more recluse as I've gotten older, but I feel as like it's harder to build those bonds with people, and I also have trust issues now, like a lot more than I've ever had. But when I do trust people, like, it's harder to build good bonds like that. So when it feels great when you do, like, it feels great to know that people do care. Like, there's a lot of shit, like shit ass people like out there. There's fucked up people. They're just dicks, and there's, you know, they may not be horrible people, but there's fucking assholes. And it's like, it's a good feeling when you do need that, and somebody reaches out, and you're like, you wouldn't even think that's the first person that would just reach out to. But some people can sense shit.
Well, then even like you were saying, I mean, I don't talk about my shit to everybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't throw it out there, but the people I care about, if I'm going down this road, like, I know everyone's going through their own shit. So I'll ask, like, hey, I don't want to be the toxic person in this relationship. I know you're going through your own shit. I don't want to dump this on you. Like, you know what I mean? I don't
Well, we're on the same boat.
I don't want to be that person.
We've had those conversations between us before too.
Right.
And I don't see, I feel like I'm burdening people with that. Like, I don't want to tell people bad. I don't want to be the guy who's always like talking about negative shit or putting burden on people. When I mean that, I mean like heavy shit on somebody else to wear their mind down. So like, if I'm going down the hole, I'd like to go down alone. I don't like to bring anybody, because I feel like, why am I going to drag them? But
no, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, I don't want to be the toxic person.
Yeah.
But they're a selective few people who I would even say shit to.
Right.
I always just want to make sure, like, okay, so this is our relationship.
Are you okay with me telling you some shit?
Yeah, can we go down this? But I mean, and my main thing is, like, I'll listen to anybody that wants to, but I'm not gonna throw like my shit back on certain people. Like,
Right.
like I said, there's less than a handful of people that I want my business. You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah, you don't want to tell everybody your business too, because some people want to know and they act like they care too, and then it comes around, and then they're telling everybody your shit, or or they're using it against you down the line for means to get something out of you.
Right. So I mean, it's also about a trust thing too. I mean,
yeah. That's why for me it's hard. It's hard to trust. I've trusted so many people and just did shit just because I thought it was the right thing, or I thought vulnerability is like, it's one of my biggest traits, and I'm not afraid to tell people shit, but I don't look at it for my benefit to not tell them. I look at it for their benefit not to know, not because I really care what anybody really thinks at the end of the day, but I don't want to drag them down, and I don't want to give them a reason to be like, oh yeah, well, remember that time you told me this? And I'd rather just avoid all those roads together. I'd rather have a positive, like, not a vibe, but like just a good relationship to the point that like there is no negativity and stuff. But it's, life's
Yeah, but sometimes
life's like that.
if you have the right person that you're leaning on or have that person, I feel like it will make the relationship stronger.
Right?
Yeah,
the
for
bond.
sure.
Yeah, because then you can connect more, and that person knows where you're at, and then
I mean, I even feel like as far as us without the mics on or through text message during the week or whatever, I mean, I feel we've gone pretty deep in some conversations, and I feel
well, you're like
it's,
if I'm being real, you're like I know I only knew you like I was a kid when I met you, and it had been many years since we'd really seen each other or really talk, and usually it was like fucking around when you were hanging out with my sister and Tracy, but like I don't know, you have this personality whereas you can just like you're you, and there's no like blindfold or anything, like you are who you really are, and like you're gonna tell me good or bad shit regardless of what I want to hear. And I have very few friends that are like that, right? And it's good to have a friend like that, especially when you trust them. And for me, like you're just I'm a pretty good like reader of character anyway. Like I observe people quite a bit, especially when I'm getting to like really know them, and like I trust my intuition. I've got really good intuition. So for me, I knew right away. I was like, I got nothing to lose anyway. And your wife's like a sister to me. I mean, she practically grew up in my house,
right.
And there's never been a dull moment that I can think of, even from being a kid, like where we ever had a bad interaction at all. She was more supportive than my siblings half the time growing up. Like, I mean, like we've mentioned before, your wife is very patient. So like for me, having the ADHD as a kid, like, and being all over the place, she just knew a way to kind of keep my attention and like calm me down when she would be there at the house, and like just kind of
As you're running around showing
acting
everyone
like,
your butthole.
Yeah, and being stupid and just running around and being a jackass as a kid. But yeah, we got plenty of those stories. But
Right. Well, I mean, I don't want to stay on this route. I just wanted to throw that out there. But I mean, we can kind of. I mean, are you good switching up this a little bit?
Yeah, I think before we switch up though, I really think that these are good things to like talk about, and I think that not just between us, like the relationship and the bond that we've built, that it's good for people to talk about it, because it's not like it's not always the great or the fun, most entertaining thing you want to hear, but like people feel real shit, and sometimes people are really like alone and they just need that, or they need somebody to be able to connect and really like know what they're fucking going through. And I think like it's just like you're not alone. Like if I could give any advice, and my advice probably isn't the best advice in the world, I've made a lot of mistakes, but if I could give anything, is just to like keep going. Like the stuff I thought was the worst at that moment, when I was younger and I thought I was going to take my life, and finally I was just like I had nothing. I felt I had nothing left and I was trapped. And my heart wasn't in it to keep fighting anymore. Like time just went on, and I drudged, and I was in a bad way for a while, but I came out of it, and now I look back on it and I'm like, the stuff that I thought was life ending then was very elementary now. Like I've been through so much. I've had so many different relationships. I've lost so many like people that I've loved. So I have a lot of like sorrow and loss and guilt and stuff, and a lot of fucked up shit has happened to me, and I'm sure there's people out there with worse things than me, so I always try to look at somebody else.
That also doesn't make it, because you feel like if you're in this fucking hole and there's people doing worse than you, so I mean it makes me just feel bad.
It makes me feel more blessed because I'm able to, I could have it much worse, and I could have had a worse upbringing. I could have had, like, I was given a lot. So I look at those things and I'm like, man, like I was given so many opportunities that most people will never know.
Yeah.
So why the fuck would I decide that, hey, I've gone through some tough times, and I don't want to be like, I don't want to dog on anybody, but if you can make it through another year or another day or another week or whatever, years, then you go back and you reflect on your life. You look back and you think about those things, about your worst moments in your life, and you'll bring back some like memories that aren't so great, but then you look at like where I am now. Not just your materialistic like things that you own or all the shit that you've acquired with money, but you look at where you are as a person and what you've accomplished and where you are, and like, hey, I'm still here.
Right.
Like, yeah, things might not be good now either, but those things that I thought were life ending,
Doesn't fucking matter.
it's a joke now. Like, those are silly things, you know? So, like, and I think that's just a part of life. That's just normal. Like, as time goes on, I'm sure I'm going to find other worse things that I think are worse, you know? But to me, I mean, not to get in the religious thing, but I'm very blessed, and I'm probably not grateful and probably not, maybe I don't appreciate it enough. I should be more humble and stuff, but, you know, we're always learning. Like, that's just something I've got to drill in myself. I'll forget about it, and it's a lesson I'll have to relearn again and again and again.
Yep.
You know, so if anybody's out there, man, don't be afraid to talk to people that you can trust, and, you know, don't be afraid to reach out. Like, if you feel like somebody, you need some advice or something to ask them. I mean, worst thing is, yeah, somebody's an asshole who's not good with giving advice or feeling your vibe or understanding you. There's always somebody else out there struggling that's either knows what you've been through, has gone through something similar, or has just been in a rough patch themselves and they've gotten out too. So
We're going through it now.
right. I just feel like we're better to build each other up than to knock each other down. And if you're around people that are knocking you down and clowning on you and really can't have a serious conversation, then don't talk to them about those things, or find other people that give a shit. You know, you don't need those, because eventually you don't need those people anymore.
Right.
It doesn't matter how long you've known them, you know, because I've known people that were like that too. They used and abused and they didn't give a shit, and they're not in my life anymore. They're not that they're bad people, but I realized as I got older, like, I don't really need them because they're not mutual on the same wavelength that I am. Like, what I would give to them, they would never give a fraction of that back. So why invest more when I can invest into the people that do matter and do care?
For sure.
So I guess that's where we'll draw the line and
Yeah,
kinda
cool. I got
jump
this.
in.
I'll do a little on the flip side.
Flip side.
Besides my get up, as your son said, looks like fucking Luigi
Luigi,
today.
yeah.
God damn, I didn't even think about that until the little motherfucker said something.
Yeah, he was like, Yahoo!
So I'm rocking the Luigi look. But so my job does this helping hands for women and kids for Christmas and shit. And so this year I went and bought the onesies for I don't know, the kid I got is I guess they wanted 6 to 9 months. So like onesies and shit like that. So I bought all these like little clothes and socks and shit for the kid. And then I picked a girl that was, I don't know, I think, I will say like a year to 18 months, whatever. But she wanted like the little people characters and some kind of VTech toy, right?
Yeah,
Bought all that shit, put it in the fucking, it's in my trunk.
that's awesome.
So on the way home, I'm hearing this fucking shit, like 4.
I already know where you're going with this.
So I turned down the fucking radio and I was like, man, I'm straight. Like, no drugs,
like,
no
what the
alcohol.
hell was that?
Like, what the fuck? And then I'm thinking, like, all right, keep giving me numbers. Like, maybe I should play this fucking lottery, right?
It's from those dreams that you were having.
No doubt. And this was about the same fucking time. So I get tripped out. So I'm like, what the fuck? Well, it stopped. So I'm like, all right. Then I hear it again. So I'm like, I'm fucked. I got to pull over. Pulled over. Turn down everything. It's like, nothing. Silence. And I was like, cool. Go to accelerate to get on. So I'm hitting the rumble strips to get on. Here comes this fucking number. 6. If this motherfucker says 2 more 6s, like, we're done. Like, I've done talked so much shit about religious and shit within the last 2 weeks. Like,
That's my bad.
now we're getting fucking signed. So, like, I pull back over and I'm like, man, what in the fuck? Well, I finally get out of the car. And this was just a day before I bought this shit. And I just forgot about it. I opened the trunk, and as soon as I opened the trunk, like move something and the fucking thing goes off, like 4 or 5, whatever
Like,
the fuck the
You
numbers.
know what? Things are good now. At least
I
you
was
know.
just like, God damn it! Like, could it be anything else that wants to fuck with me at this point?
Right.
But so I told like coworker, she's just like laughing like shit. But it's just like, oh, I gotta bring that up because it was just like, oh no, I'm straight headed, but where the fuck is this voice coming from?
You know what? It's funny you mentioned that because before we bought our house, we lived in this apartment. And at the moment, like my wife was pregnant, we were married. She had just gotten pregnant maybe a few months after we got married. And we knew we were having Ian. And I had my daughter.
You knew you were having a boy? I mean,
Yeah,
you
we knew,
checked that out.
we knew all that. We were looking for apartments, and my credit was shit at this point, and she never really had credit cards or anything. Like her parents helped her get her first vehicle, and she always paid like in cash and everything. Like when she had gotten cars as she got older. So together, like we were both not well off, like credit wise. We were working a lot. We were fixing a lot of that, and we were helping each other. And that's kind of really like our relationship as we were dating got even better because I would take her and her daughter out, like, and do little things like that just spontaneously. And we would always have a lot of fun, but like I helped her kind of get things in order on her end as I was fixing some of my shit. And there were moments like when we first met, she helped me out when I was in my worst way and had nothing. And it's kind of how I ended up in the apartment prior to moving into the one with her. Like when I was roommating with that one guy that I spoke about in previous episode, like she kind of like reached out and got me into that place and hooked me up, and like that dude wouldn't have cared anyway, but she smoothed it over and made it work and got me in there. So like that just kind of, we built upon that as each like stepping stone in a relationship, like that helped. But we got this apartment because she was pregnant and we weren't sure we were going to get it. We looked at a few and even like shittier ones, and they were like, no, your credit's bad. Like we need a lot up front, but we're not taking the risk. We walked into this other one that was a lot nicer, and I was like, we're not going to get this one either, because everyone we went to like around that area, they were like, no. And then when they said yes, they wanted like three months like up front. And
Jesus Christ.
like my credit was really bad. She had no credit, and mine was really
God
bad.
damn, for an apartment?
Yeah, at that time, I mean, money's a little differently now. Like it's probably even worse now, but maybe they're understanding too because they know people don't, things are harder now too. But we got in, we must have had a horseshoe up our ass, or somebody was blessing us or some shit. Like it just worked. We went in there. We weren't expecting to hear anything. We got the apartment. We were all like excited because she was pregnant and she was due to give birth like, I don't know, a few months from that point on. So we were getting settled in, and it felt great. So we were in this apartment, but after he was born, we were there for a few years, probably 4 or 5 years, and like there's gonna be a counter up here for the likes and the ums and all that shit. So look for it up here because we're gonna start counting these. But in this apartment, like he was born, and it had been like a year or two. No, I think he was an infant. It was within the first year of his life. He was in the next room over. He had a crib. For the first like 7 months, he lived in our room. We put the crib next to my side of the bed. But we just moved him over into his own room like right around a year. And, my wife was really good about getting up, me not so much. Like, I should have been probably better, but I'm a heavy sleeper. It takes a lot for me to get to sleep, but when I do, I'm out. Well, we were laying in bed one night. He was already down, like for about a few hours. Like we had a TV in our room, our bedroom, and she would usually stay up and watch it, but she went to bed, and it's like 2, 3 in the morning, and I got to get up in a few hours anyway. And all of a sudden, this noise goes off, and kind of like you said, you have dreams. I have dreams a lot, like good ones, bad ones, but most of mine are pretty vivid. And it's weird that you brought that up because I heard this noise and she kind of nudged me. I was asleep, but I was kind of like in between because I don't sleep really well. It takes a lot for me to get to REM sleep. So she kind of nudged me, and I'm like, okay. She nudged me like 2 more times, and finally she like starts shaking me. I'm like, what? What was that? What? She goes, there was a noise. And I was like, okay, well, we live in an apartment complex. It's pretty noisy. I know it's like 2, 3 in the morning, but it's usually pretty noisy here anyway.
Yeah.
She's like, no, it's coming from inside the apartment. And she's like, something keeps going off. I'm not, like, I don't know, it's pretty eerie. And I was like, what do you mean? And as she's sitting there, like, about to tell me, like, what it is she heard, this thing kind of rings. It goes, diddling, diddling. And it said, you've got a message. You've got a message. And she looks at me, she's like, it's coming from Ian's room. Like, and we had toys and stuff in there, but I just moved like toys into that room because we just put them in there. And I'm like, oh, it's probably one of his toys or something. Like, and she's like, I don't care. Like, we need to go check on him. And she's like looking at me like, you're getting out of bed to fucking check on him. She's like, I'm staying here.
Right.
She's like, I don't like, she believes in some of the spiritual shit. And she does the true crime stuff on, like, she watches all that shit, but she's really like invested into a lot of that. And we've done like ghosty shit in the past where we've gone out with recorders and we've gotten shit. Like when we've gone through with decoder and actually heard like voices and shit and they've said, like, they were intelligent. They said my name. Like, they said my full fucking name. Because we were looking at like Civil War shit, and there was a general that I'm actually related to that fought down towards Antietam battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what's your name, Andrew? And then later on it said, Andrew Richardson. And it freaked me the fuck out. But anyway, she's heavily invested. I've always kind of been skeptical, but I'm like, yeah, I know there's something, but, you know, I'm busy with all this other shit. You know,
sure.
I don't want to go too far and then, like, bring something home or fuck with shit that we're not supposed to fuck with. So I don't, like, get into that. But she was going to get me out of bed. She's like, no, you need to go check. And I'm like, I looked at her and go, nah, I think we're good. Because it kept going off. And then it just stopped. And then I thought, like, I was like, what toy would have done that? And she goes, well, your sister gave him some VTech toys. Like, it was like a little iPad thing. And there were 2 of them. There was one that said, like, one of the ones, there's a bunch of buttons that said different things and did different shit. But one of them said you had a message. And then there was another time that was similar to that. But this
did you get up? I mean, what
no,
was the
fuck
end
no.
result?
We looked
So
at
you
each
just let
other,
it be?
and I was like, I'm just going to go back to bed. And everything was fine. Like, after that, didn't go off the rest of the night. It went off one more time as she was telling me, like, about to tell me, and then it didn't do it the rest of it. I went and I took those fucking batteries out the next day. Like, I went through, unpiled it. There was nothing on the fucking thing. It just went off. So I don't know if one of the buttons was, like, stuck. And the kids, like, my nieces and nephews had this shit prior, so it had been, like, played with a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it was just that time. It was an older toy at this point.
So if you was to hear that shit the next night, that's when you just pack your shit and get the fuck out.
Yeah. So then he had this other toy, and this happened in an evening, and like it was like a weekend when we were off, and I was in the back room, and she had stayed up because she would stay up in the living room, watch TV sometimes because the TV always kept me up. Like I don't do well with TVs in my room, but she was watching something, like I think it was like watching old episodes of like 24 or whatever, something with yeah, that's it. And
Jack Bauer.
yeah,
That show
that's
was
a good
shit
show.
when it first
Yeah,
started.
especially
They
the
kinda
first
dragged
few.
that
Yeah,
shit on
most
a
of
little
them
too
do though.
fucking much.
Most of them do though. That's how I felt like about Walking Dead. The first 2 seasons were great, and then after I got kind of shitty. I'm sure it had great moments, but for me,
Yeah.
like the different director had like it was way darker at first. It was great.
I feel like that's almost every fucking show.
Right. It's like they start out, and as they get popular, it's like the direction changes, and they try to look for ways.
Well,
to
just like
market.
Sons of Anarchy, that was a fucking great show. But
Yeah.
I mean, how many different federal agencies can you bring in? I mean,
Right.
all right.
The story's got to end at some time, and it can't drag on forever. And you got to be super creative without losing people, and you've got to almost fit expectations too.
Yeah.
Or you've got to be good enough to know that even without those expectations, you can make it work, and that's a beast in its own. But this night, she got done watching 24. She comes back to the room, and same sort of thing happened, but this is a different toy altogether. And it goes, and it's a VTech toy. So I don't know if it's something VTech does to fuck with people.
Yeah,
Like
maybe.
that's their secret like marketing thing on their end. But it said, this one said, we're here. Like it was like a car thing, and it goes, we're here. We're here. And she does that shit again where she's like, you heard that? Because I was still kind of like up.
Yeah.
I was just kind of laying in bed. And she goes, I was like, yeah, I heard that. That's fucking freaky. And she's like, okay, well, that fucking creeps me out. So she checked on Ian. He was fine. Because that was coming out from the living room this time. Because he had toys out there too. But she's like, yeah, I don't fucking like this. Like, whatever's going, this is the second time now. And she's like, I experienced shit in my life, like, and I have too, where like there's things I couldn't explain or things that were like, I'm overthinking this. And there's been shit like that has happened.
For sure.
Like, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take it for what it is, be appreciative that I experienced that, and then forget about it. So it happened and it kept going off. Then it stopped. Then like a few hours later, we wake up in the night because the thing just starts going off again. I'm like, fuck, man. So, and she claims that she had seen a figure, like, cause I don't know, she would be out of it. Like when she goes to sleep, she's out. But she said she claimed she thought it was me walking across the threshold of our door going towards Ian's room. And she's like, I mean, you're a bigger dude. She's like, I thought it was you. And then I look over and you're laying right next to me like asleep. And she's like, that freaked me the fuck out. And I'm like, well, I didn't see it, but, whatever.
Right.
I think we're fine. I was like, I've never felt threatened by anything like that. Like, you can usually sense energy. Like, I'm one of those people, I can feel energy pretty well. So it's like, I know when I shouldn't be somewhere. I'm pretty aware of stuff. And if I don't get a good feeling about something, I trust them enough where I'm like, something's coming or something's about to happen. I need to get out of here. So, yeah, those VTech toys, man, they're fucking...
Yeah, so I got another story about a fucking sound. We were laying in bed one night, and I heard this, like, it was like a thump. It was a solid fucking thump. And it sounded like downstairs. We were in bed. And then it was nothing. And the lights were out. The TV was out. So, like, the sleep timer was already done. We're just laying there. And then you hear this thump again. And then you hear this, like,
Elmo.
like, laughing. And I'm laying there. It's no big deal. Tracy's not saying shit. So I'm like, can't be that big of a fucking deal. It is what it is. Then I hear this thump. And it seemed to be closer than it was before.
Oh, shit.
At that point, the inner bitch in me came alive, and every fucking piece of manhood kind of left.
Out the door.
Oh, fuck yeah. So it did it again. And like, I kind of just reached over and nudged Tracy. Like, hey, motherfucker, you hear this? Like,
I'm not going crazy.
Not kind of like, hey, did you hear this? But kind of, maybe if I move and she's asleep, maybe she'll
be
hear
aware.
this. So I bumped her and acted like I was asleep. Then I heard it again, and she's like, you do hear that, right? And I said, hear what?
Act like you weren't thinking the same damn
I
thing.
told you, the straight bitch came out of me. I said, hear what? And she's like, don't fucking play. And I was like, yeah, I hear that shit. And she's like, are you going to go check it? I was like,
Fuck no.
I thought you were going to go check it. And she's like, are you fucking serious? Well, as we're talking, this fucking thump, it's getting louder and louder. And like, I mean,
Your heart starts going to shit.
it's
man.
the biggest bitch that came out of me. Like,
Right.
if Tracy if I could have picked her up and like physically pushed her, that's
Well,
you.
and it matters too, like at the time of day, because if it's early in the morning, like really late into the night, it's like, okay, your kid's asleep. Somebody's not pranking you at that point.
I mean, so this went on, and it wasn't like boom, haha, boom, haha. It was
right, it was
like,
spaced out.
Yeah. So I'm like, what the fuck? So finally, I guess I kind of tucked the inner bitch back in a little bit, and like, all right.
Going to turn on all those
I gotta go
fucking
check
lights and
this.
shit.
No, there's really no lights, and the stairway was like right around the corner. So I mean, I finally get there. I turn on the fucking hall light. It's the fucking cat has this fucking heavy ass baby doll. Well, the thump is the fucking baby doll's head
hitting the wall.
Well, I guess as this motherfucker hits the next step, it fucking sets off whatever the fucking he. I wanted to kill that motherfucking cat. Like, you're about to find out if these motherfuckers really got 9 lives, because just the straight bitch was just
pick it up by its tail, swinging around.
The
shit.
bitch vibes I have was strong that fucking night. I wanted to kick the fuck out of that cat.
Oh man,
But
that's fucking wild, man. Like I don't know, man. I don't want to get too deep into some of the dream shit, but I don't know. Maybe I will. It's not really like, I don't know. Maybe I should. I'll get into it a little bit since we're on this topic, but I get these dreams, and when I was younger, I always just kind of like had this feeling like as a kid, I loved my parents, but my dad and I, like, he was a tough man. He was a man of few words. He was kind of rough, and he used to have these like nightmares, kind of like of Goosebumps, like that doll. What's his name?
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like R.L. Stein books?
Yeah, we used to read Goosebumps. My brother used to read all of them, so we had the covers.
It was like the R.L. Stein.
And it was
the author, right?
Yeah. So it was like slappy. And I used to have these, like, I had this cartoon vision in my head when I was a kid and laying in my room. And I had this dream, like, I had a dream about my dad dying. And I was like really sad, but I was like, well, when you're a kid, like, whoever you're closest to, you're like, well, yeah, I don't want my parents to die, but if, I'd be more devastated if, like, my mom, like, at that time I was like, my mom, you don't want that. But I woke up like crying and stuff, and their bedroom was across the hall, and I told my mom, she's like, oh, it's a nightmare. You have those sometimes. Well, as I got older, like, I lost my best friend. I think we were like, he was 16. He was a few months, maybe 7 or 8 months actually younger than me. We were going into our senior year of high school. We just got out of, like, we were juniors. I was 17 and he was just about to turn 17. Well, the summertime, like, it was really hot out. It was muggy a lot. And if you know, like, where we lived in Frederick County, usually you had really good spring and summers, but you'd get a lot of rain in between. And then, but this particular summer, man, like, it was hot. It was dry. We were going through a drought. And then out of nowhere, like, working for my dad, being in high school and shit, like, anytime I wasn't working, I was hanging out with my best friend Thomas, and we were supposed to go up to this area further up the road out in, like, the boonies, kind of where he lived. And there's this train track where we'd walk over these train tracks, like, about 40 feet, maybe 30 feet up in the air. And it goes and then it runs back on land a little bit. But we would go walk up on it. I was afraid of heights. But when I was with this dude, like, I did whatever. Because I just trusted him, and we were, I was like, yeah, he wants to go up there. I'm going to face my fears and just do this shit. So we did. We would just go do shit. And I would always do shit that I normally wouldn't have done by myself. And there was, like, a watering, like a creek that ran down through there. I don't know if it was a creek or a river or whatever, but it would run through there, and kids would go and swim in there. And this particular day, he had brought his friend along, and they considered each other like family, but he was just this kid named Mike White, and he was always around Thomas when I wasn't, you know what I mean? And we started our band, so we were always doing band after school, and he was a smart dude, but he didn't play himself in school. So, like, he'd get in trouble. His mom would be like, yeah, he's not allowed to do this. And I'm like, dude, I'd be on his shit. I'd be like, come on, you're smarter than me. You're in better classes than me. And you've got, like, D's and shit. Like, you're smarter than this. I know you're smart. And it didn't take him long. Like,
right.
When he wanted to do shit, the dude was back to having a B or an A, like, in a matter of time. Like, he was way smarter than I was. Like, he just didn't. I think he was at that teenage phase where he's just like, he didn't give a fuck, you know?
Right.
Yeah, whereas I wanted to be like that, but I wasn't. Like, when shit mattered, it mattered, because I was raised differently. His parents were great people, but he was just able to be like, I don't care. He was the oldest out of his siblings, so for me, he was like, fuck it. Mm-hmm. And he was just so fearless about shit. So I always admired him. Like, he's soft-spoken, a good dude, and he's the kind of guy who could have been friends with anybody. Like, he was just always happy and just always bringing, like, joy to everybody. So he was cool to be around, and he brought a lot of, like, I learned so much from him, and I changed as a person being around him. Like, I learned to appreciate shit a lot more and like not be so worried about what people thought. Because he's like, who fuck cares, man? Are you happy? Yeah, do what makes you happy. Like, fuck it. We'll grow old and figure that shit out later. I don't care. And he ended up dying that summer. So there was a particular day I wasn't working for my dad. And my dad, usually at this point I was a teenager. I wasn't listening to my dad that much. Like, I always heard what my parents said. And I would absorb it. But I always was like, that teenager, so I was like, well, fuck it, they're not going to know, or whatever. They'll find out years later, and they'll be like, well, why the fuck did you do that?
Yeah.
And I was just, like, becoming more and more, like, independent and, like, free-minded at that point. So I was like, if my dad tells me no, I'm going to call my mom. And she was a pushover at this time because she was just too busy working, and there were 4 of us. 2 of them had moved off, but she was still very involved in our lives. But she'd be so swamped with all this volunteering and all this, extra shit that she was doing outside of work that she couldn't keep up. So she was like, oh, yeah, okay, just contact us, whatever. Let us know where you're going at least. So my dad's like, yeah, I don't really want you going up there. You just got your license. I know you've been driving in places, but there's some bad weather coming. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like a drought. It hasn't rained in since early spring. We're in the dead of summer. It's hot as fuck out, and it's not raining at all. There's not a cloud in the fucking sky. I was like, he's like, I don't know. I really don't want you going up there, especially if you guys are, going out in the woods and stuff. I really just don't feel comfortable having you drive in the rain and all that, and people, how people drive. And for whatever reason, he was drilling that. He just kept repeating it. My dad kind of had OCD and ADHD. I don't know if he had ADHD, but he definitely had OCD, and he would repeat himself. He had we called him Wayneisms because his name was Wayne. So he would do this shit, and people actually loved him for it because at work, man, he'd be like, "You're gonna get that, you're gonna get that," and they'd fuck with him you're like, "Are you being serious right now, or are you fucking with me?" Because he would do that just to be funny and shit too. But he kept telling me, he's like, I just really don't want you. And I was like, well, I'll call mom and let her know. He's like, no, don't. He's like, I don't care. I really don't want you bothering your mom at work. But even if your mom says yes, I really don't feel comfortable with you doing that. It's like he almost knew something was coming. But he didn't say it that way. He just was like, I don't know. I don't know. And maybe, because I do, I've noticed as I've gotten older, me and my dad are a lot more alike than I thought. We're a lot of the same person, also mentally, the way we think, the way we look, the way we reflect on shit. And it's he sent something that I was like, oh, what is he worried about? So I called my friend. I was like, yeah, man, my dad doesn't want me to come up there. Well, I couldn't get through, so I had to leave a message. And it wasn't unusual for him not to answer his phone the first time you called. But I left a message. I tried a few times. He didn't answer. I was like, well, sometimes he might not have service, or maybe his battery died. He forgets to charge his phone sometimes. So I called his mom and dad's house, and they used to ride bikes. It's a few miles up the road from where they lived, outside their neighborhood, and it's very rural, So yeah. It's a bit of a ways down the road, but they would walk miles down or ride bikes down and shit. And go, and for whatever reason I couldn't get a hold of him, so I left him a message. I tried calling his house, and then I was like, okay, I'll just stop. I'll talk to him later. But I was supposed to be there, so I was like, man, because we made these plans to go swimming and just hang out up there, or we would go walk across the train tracks and shit, and we'd be out there for hours. And then as it got dark, we'd probably leave. Well, I didn't hear anything. Day goes on. And I'm like, well, that's weird, man. He hasn't hit me up, but he'll hit me up later around 6 or 7 as it got dark. He'll head home and he'll hit me up. We'll talk about band practice or something, or we'll talk about girls or whatever the fuck we were talking about, because we did that shit. And I got nothing. And hours go by. I get a call from his mom, and his mom's like, well, hey, you were supposed to be with Thomas today, and Mikey was with him, and you guys were supposed to go do this. And I was like, yeah, we were supposed to, but my dad, didn't want me going up there. He told me not to go. And I was like, I really wanted to go. I couldn't get a hold of Thomas. I left him a message. And then I tried to call your house a few times thinking maybe he was still at the house. And she's like, well, yeah. She's like, you guys were supposed to go down to the, the area there. And I was like, yeah. So she's like, well, I'll go ride down there. But she's like, I'll give you a call later and let him know you called. And I was like, okay, well, he's not back yet. That, let him know. I'm like, let me know if he's okay. Cause it's like, he hasn't, it's not normal for him to not call me after a few times I like ringing him.
Right.
Like, I know, like, we get careless as teens and shit, and he was like that. He would get to you when he got to you, but if you were important to him, he would get to you pretty quickly. So I always thought it was odd anyway. And I told his mom, I was like, well, I'm concerned because usually he hits me up right away. So unless he doesn't have like cell service or something, that's the only thing I can think of. But that concerns me. Like, I haven't heard shit from him, and it's been since like the night before, really. And she's like, well, don't worry about it. I'm going to go look for him because it is getting kind of dark. He's supposed to be back for dinner. Like, that's our rule. And she goes, I guess she went down there. And his dad worked for, like, the Postal Service out of Baltimore. I think. It was either Baltimore or somewhere, but he was, like, some sort of, I don't know if he was an engineer. He was in the military. That's where him and his mom met, like, in high school. And, in fact, my friend was born in, I want to say it was either Iceland or Greenland, somewhere, because he was in the military and he was serving. And they got married out of high school because they were high school sweethearts. He went into the service, I think in the Navy or something, and was stationed over there. My friend was born there. Then they came back, and then years later, they got pregnant again with his little brother. But his dad, I never really met his dad a whole lot because his dad was never home when I would go to his house. Yeah. His mom I knew quite a bit because she would take us to the mall before we had licenses every once in a while, and she was always dropping him off at the house, or I'd always come up to his place, like after I got my license. But yeah, she went down there. His dad wasn't there yet because he worked like overnight, and then he would like do shit throughout the day or whatever. But he would sleep. Like, his schedule was weird, but he worked for them, but down in Baltimore and travel and then come up. So at this point, like, his dad didn't really know me or anything, but his mom goes down there and she's like, well, that's odd. I don't find him anywhere. And then she got real concerned because she saw his clothes folded up and Mike's clothes like folded up, his friend Mike, like they were in the water. But they're gone. There's nobody around, and it's really getting dark now. Like, whereas I think when she went down there was still kind of like horizon, but like it was starting to get really dark, and she was getting concerned. So she was calling me, she was calling his dad, she was calling pretty much anybody. Like they knew quite a bit of people, but they were calling all their family members. Hey, have you heard from Thomas? This, that, and the other thing. And I got this call and I was like, well, now I'm really fucking concerned. So she's like kind of questioning me, like, what is it you guys were supposed to be doing today? Like, you haven't heard, when was the last time you talked to him? And I think she got confused because she was like fucking nervous. And I think when I was telling her, I was like, well, we were supposed to be down there. She's like, so you were with him today? And I was like, no, not at all. I was like, we talked about going there, but my dad called me earlier today and didn't want me going because I'm a new driver, Yeah. And he said it was supposed to rain. Well, sure enough, it fucking rained. And it rained a lot and quickly. Like, some bad storms came out of fucking nowhere, and it rained for like days. Like, for a good, probably like a week, I think it rained. The ground was really wet and shit. And well, it had rained around like, I don't know, 3 or 4 o'clock. When I talked to my dad earlier in the day, it was like 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. or something. It was after morning, but it was like before noon. It had to be around like 10 o'clock, 10:30 or something. Because I was on the computer when I was talking to him. He called me, and I was downstairs in my parents' living room fucking around playing Diablo or something. But I don't know, man. Like, she called me back, and now I'm really fucking concerned because, she didn't find him, and now she's worried. And she didn't really tell me all that stuff about the clothes. She said, I went down there, and it's dark as shit. I don't see them. I called for them, nothing. Like, maybe they headed back. Like, I didn't see any of the bikes or, like, I didn't see their stuff. Well, I can't remember if she told me any of that. I don't think she did. Okay. But in her mind, she's like, well, maybe she didn't see all that stuff either yet. But she's like, yeah, I didn't see them. Maybe they're heading back. So she went back to the house thinking maybe they were already, like, through the woods heading back up the road or whatever. And then she went to check Mike's house and there was nothing. And then they realized both of them like they're still not back. Well, maybe they'll show up. Nothing. So then as it gets later, they're getting worried. His dad gets home. Now they're calling me again. They're asking me specifically like, okay, what was it you guys were supposed to do? You mentioned this before. What is it you guys were doing? Like, what was it you were supposed to do today? Like, where were you guys going? And I said, well, we were going down to the watering hole where all the kids swim. So I've only been down there a few times, but my dad, didn't want me to go. He just really didn't. I was like, what's going on? And she's like, well, we can't talk about it right now. But we'll find him, and he's probably lost or something. We'll find him. It's not a big deal. We've got to go. So she got off the phone. And I went to bed that night, and I was like, man, I'm really worried now. I just had this feeling of something's really wrong. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew it had to do with my friend. Like, something is fucking wrong. And I remember it being like, it was around like 10:30, maybe 11 p.m. at night. And my dad would watch the news or watch a game. And my dad's the kind of guy, he put on Fox News or whatever station he was watching then, but it became Fox News later on in his life. And he just watch and listen. He would always tell me, like, as a kid, he's like, I'd be like, why are you watching that shit all day? Like, can you change the channel to something else? Watch a movie or something. And he'd be like, it's good to know about the news.
Yeah.
He's like, it's good to know, you're gonna understand this someday when you get older. It's good to know what the fuck's going on in the world. And I was just like, whatever. But this night he was sitting there. My mom and dad were at home. We had eaten dinner. I was like in bed already, and I was just laying down, and a news report came on, and they were local news talking about these two kids missing. And I was like, and then my parents were like, Andrew. And it was my fucking friend Thomas, and the kid that Thomas was close with that I'd met, that we were kind of starting to develop a relationship. Because part of going down there was like, I'd never really hung out with Mikey either, Mike White, and he was trying to get us closer because that was also his other really close friend.
Yeah.
So he was trying to build a bond with us, and I never got to do that. I got the report and I got really upset. Like, of course, I'm laying in bed, like, crying myself to sleep, like, what the fuck's going on? My dad, actually, not a man of many emotions. Never really seen my dad cry, maybe one, maybe two times. Like, at that point in my life, I'd never seen him cry, but you had to think, my friend Thomas was always at my house. He'd become, like, part of the family. Yeah. He was always there. Super Bowl parties. Like, eating Chinese food and all this shit. Like, we'd watch the game for a little bit, or we'd go fuck off, play video games, or do music shit. But he was there chowing down with us. He was there hanging out, and he was just like, he had become a part of the house. So he was just there so much. Like, my dad, that's kind of how you knew, like, you were in with my dad, because if you were there enough and he started talking to you and asking you questions, like, you knew he was invested in you. He may not say a lot, but if he tries to make you laugh and joke with you, like, he'd fuck with you. Yeah. So, like, and my dad wasn't like that with all of our friends. Like, there were certain people you just wouldn't, but he did with him, and he was crying, and he was really concerned, and he's like, and then he's sitting there thinking, oh, fuck, now my son, like I told him earlier, and it's kind of, it makes me, I don't know, it's making me feel weird right now, because my dad had this feeling, he just knew something bad, like, was going to happen if I had gone. And at that point in my life, I was always fighting with my dad, and I didn't always, like, think he cared or loved me. Like, he did, but in my mind, as a teenager, when you're pissed and you've got all these, like, all this shit going on inside, and these hormones and shit, like, it's like, he doesn't fucking care. Yeah. And I knew then, like, for sure, I was like, yeah, he fucking cares, like. And normally I wouldn't have listened to him, but for whatever reason this day I did. I listened to what he said, and I did exactly what he did, even though I was, like, about to say fucking go. And for whatever reason, man, like, I don't know, like, my parents were both upset. My mom's like, well, haha, you'll be fine. Like, they'll find him wrapped up around a tree out in the woods, lost. They'll find him. You guys will be laughing about this in, like, a few days or a week from now, and she kept trying to, like, keep the mood. Then our friend, we had this mutual friend, this girl we used to hang out with. And she used to race like fucking hot rods and shit. Like not hot rods, but those drag racer cars. Like her dad was into that stuff, and he actually used to do that like when he was younger. So she was into that. She was one of those girls that was like into mechanics and like driving fast cars, and she was into the punk rock shit with us and all that stuff. Like she hung out with all of us. She was real hot. I forget her name now, but her name was Kristen Beasley. But she was really cool and just chilled to be around. And she was just like the coolest shit. She was one of the dudes. She would just hang out with all of us, and she would put your ass in your place. You know what I mean? But with me, I was always kind of a easy go. Like, so we got along really well. But she called me crying after that report. Like everybody that knew Thomas, like I started getting all these text messages, but I wouldn't answer anything. I wasn't calling, like taking calls. I took her call because we had just hung out with her probably like a week before that. Because her house was near his grandmother's house, which was like right down the street outside of like this road. It's only a few minutes walk from where Tom's grandmother's house, which we would go sometimes, and we'd hang out with Kristen. We would go down to Kristen's house and kick it. She had a pool and all this shit, and we'd just talk about music, play music, and just be stupid. And we'd flirt with her and act stupid, but we were hanging out, and so we had this really good relationship, but we were close. And she called me crying. I'm like, well, I'm already upset, but I need to be strong for her. So she's talking to me, crying me, telling me, she's like, man, I just saw him like the other day. Like, what the fuck is going on? Do you know anything? And I was like, I told her exactly what I knew so far, and I called his mom and what they told me, and I was like, I don't really know anything else. Like, they told me they called me later. Like, all I know is that I just heard that report. Like, my parents told me. I was watching the end of it. I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I'm not getting a good feeling about it. Like, if I'm being honest. And I was like, I know I sound like a bitch because I started crying to her on the phone and sobbing. I was like, and she's crying back, but she's holding her composure better than mine. And we're teenagers, man. Like, she was like 2 years younger. She's like 15, turning 16, and she's like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't feel good about this either. Like, it's not like him to not reach out to anybody or not show up. Like, he's just not that kind of. I know he's reckless sometimes, because he has that fearless attitude, but it's not like him. Like, he would hit me up too, because they talked a lot and shit too. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, so we were on the phone for like 2 hours until eventually we just I was like, man, I gotta go to bed. But just let me know, like, call me if you need anything, and vice versa. She was the same way, and she's like, well, let's get together tomorrow and go looking for him or whatever. Well, the next day, his mom called me in the morning. She's like, yeah, he's still not back. We don't know what's going on, but the police are involved now. They know, obviously, from the news report. She's like, if you hear anything, just call me. She's like, a group of us are going down. We're doing search parties and shit, because it's definitely not like him. And it's the weather down there. It's wet, and it's still raining. Like, it's not good, and we need to find him. She's like, the police don't really want people down there while they're helping out doing the searching and stuff. But she's like, if you feel like you need to come down there and help, I'm not going to turn you away. Right. So, of course, I tell my mom was like, I need to go. Like, and they were trying to, you haven't eaten. You need to eat something because you're upset too. And I was like, fuck it. I'm not hungry. Dude, I didn't eat for 2 weeks. Jeez. After that night, I didn't eat for 2 weeks. Like, literally. I was drinking water, drinking soda and shit, but I didn't eat shit. Because I was just so, emotionally, I just had this feeling. I was like, man, they're not going to find him alive. Like, I have this bad feeling. Something happened. I don't know what it is, but I had this feeling, and I hope I'm wrong. Because, he's like a brother to me, and he's like he gives me purpose to be the guy I am, and, he helped me find a lot of who I was, and, trust in my, how I felt about shit. And he made me want to be like him in the fearless part, and just not, just to live life to the fullest. And it was hard for me to do that. I don't know, man. So, he was a prankster too. There were so many things I admired about him that I was like, I wish I could be like that more. So it was being around him made me better. It made me kind of, so anyway, regardless, it goes on. We couldn't find him. We went through search party. The police told us to stay away. And I had another friend named Mike. Mike Edwards, who we were close with, and I introduced to Thomas, and we got close because we played music. And I took him with me. I got him, drove him down there with me, and we went searching along the side of this, like, I don't know if it's a creek. I want to say it's a creek. It runs into like the Monocacy or Potomac or whatever. It's a long stretch, but it goes down. It's not huge, but it's like a little river.
Yeah.
And it goes away. Like it goes some miles. And so we're following his dad. And at the time, I just saw some guys, like, I saw police like walking around or whatever, but his dad and like some of the parents and some of the people close to them were like, well, why aren't they like walking down the side of this thing? Like they're just looking here for something. Like they're searching around that general area, but nobody's walking down the side to see if they're like down there or out in the woods. Like they got moved down, they got out somewhere and they got lost. Like they don't know where they're at. And if they had cell phones and that shit was in the water, well, I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know very much at this point. But I got there with my friend. We parked the car. We walked over. I saw his dad. And his dad didn't really know me because, like I said, I'd only met him a few times, but I recognize people. Like, I'm not good with names and shit, but when I meet somebody and I get energy or I see their face, like, I never forget a face. Yeah. So I knew it was his dad, but his dad was kind of out of it, obviously, because his shit's like, oh, my son's fucking missing. And his mom's there. The little brother they sent somewhere. So she was there. She said hello to me, but she had to go off, and they were talking, and like, I guess the police were talking to her, and like, well, where do you think, this, that, asking her all sorts of questions and stuff. And while they were there searching, and like, she was out of it. She was definitely, you could tell, out of it, and she was like,
I'm sure you can only imagine your kid missing.
Right. So there was this hill there, and there were a bunch of people that were there just hanging out. Like they wanted to help, but the police didn't really want anybody getting in the way. Yeah. But I saw across the street, like across this 194 is the main like road that a lot of trucks and people would go through town, through Westminster, Tawnytown, and all that stuff. And it was between like, what's that? Union Bridge and like Woodsboro. So there's like there's like an overpass there, and that's the creek, where the train goes overhead, like further back. So it happened there, and so I see his dad across the road, over like northern of that area, with a group of people, like grown men, walking over there, and I start walking, and I look at Mike as like, we're gonna follow him, we're gonna stay back a little bit, we're going across that creek, and we're searching. Like nobody's walking down the side of this thing. They're going over there because they were looking for people to go with them, and I said, hey, we'll go, and they're like, no, you guys are young, stay back. Like, just stay out of the way. The police don't want you over here anyway. Stay out of the way. His dad, I was like, no, I'm not going. That's like my best friend. Like, I need to know he's okay. And I got kind of like teary-eyed and shit. And the guy goes, the kid, just stay out of the way. Then his dad turns around. He says, hey, these kids, they're trying to follow us. His dad turns around and goes, who are you? And I was like, Andrew Richardson. I was like, your son is my best friend. Like, we hang out all the time. I was like, I know you don't know me. He's like, he goes, oh, they didn't want you. He's like, you know what? Fuck it. Follow us. I don't think he said fuck it because they're pretty religious and shit too. Like they were pretty soft-spoken. Yeah. Very careful about the way they said things. But I think he was just like, whatever, just stay out of our way. We're going ahead. And be careful, okay? So we followed that group of like 6 or 7 men, like, down the side for hours, walking this thing around the side, poking around the side of the water with long sticks. And this river normally is maybe like 3-4 feet. This thing was up to like 8 feet, 9 feet because of all the rain. And the water, like, it goes down in elevation, so the water rushed down and filled it was raining a lot. Yeah. For days at this point. Like every day there was more and more water. Finally the rain stopped like a week later. But this thing had rised a lot. And so we're poking around with these big giant like sticks we're finding off of trees to try to just find anything or stir something up, thinking the worst, We didn't see anything at all. We walked for miles and miles. It felt like the whole day we walked down this thing. We ended out like almost towards the end of Woodsboro into like, there's another town there past Walkersville, but we walked pretty far, and we ended up in somebody's like backyard, like a big open field, a nice really house and like a lot of land. Like you could have a horse farm or something there. Like it was huge. And some random person came and picked us up. Like one of the guys called like, hey, we're over towards this area. They drove into this guy's like, driveway and picked us up. And it was like a long, long driveway. Because this is like backwoods kind of, shit. So nobody was at the house, but he's like, yeah, the number is this. And they found us somehow. They're like, I think it's between this and that street. And they found us. So we all piled up in the back of this truck, and the truck drove us back to where the police were around that bridge. And I don't know, man, like I just got a bad feeling. And this went on for days. Like we kept looking and looking. Police didn't find anything. They had like a little search boat, and there was this girl in high school. I can't remember her name now. It's been so long, but she was always friendly to me. She was like one of those firefighter EMT like sort of people, and they put her on one of the boats, like these lifeboat things and they couldn't do a whole hell of a lot because the water, there's the bridge and the water was rising, and the water was dirty because of all that shit. So it wasn't clear. It wasn't easy to like look through. And these people spent days and days, and it was like after a week and a half later, they almost called. They were getting to the point where they had to call it off. Like and just on this last day, almost 2 weeks, like it was heading into the second week. And I just remember, like they're talking about, we haven't found anything, we don't know, and that's when information started coming out. Like his mom, she talked about clothes were folded up, the bikes were, I don't know if the bikes were there or not, or if they were behind brush or something, but they asked the neighbors that lived around there that were still kind of close to that road, like the highway road there. It was not a highway, but it's like, we always call it 194 is like a highway, but it's not. It's just road. It's a very busy road, but it's just a 2-lane, opposite, direction road, but it's long stretch into all the like back towns and stuff. But yeah, so she told me about the folded clothes, and I was like, that's weird, because he would have never folded his clothes. Like we were messy. We would pull our shit off and just throw it down. Yeah. Like we wouldn't have, she said his clothes were folded. She said Mike's were folded. And that was odd behavior for them. So immediately my brain went somewhere else. I'm thinking like somebody showed up. Something must have happened. Maybe there was foul play. Something. Yeah. Like, and knowing them, like if they were fucking with somebody or somebody said something to them, they would have yelled like, fuck you back or something like that. They're good dudes, but they're the kind that they would be fearless to like fuck with people back. If somebody said something smart, they would have said something right back to them.
Yeah, teenage boys.
Yeah, and they were like that. Whereas I would have just kept quiet and been like, whatever, fucking, I'm just going to play dumb and pretend this didn't happen, just go away. And I hear this blood, I'm sitting on the hill now, I'm talking to Kristen, she's there, and a few of her friends showed up, like just hanging out, like wondering when he's going to show up or something's going to happen. And they're like, they're not as upset, but, everybody deals with things differently. But they knew I was real upset because I was the closest one to him. And they knew our relationship was really strong and shit. And I'm like thinking, they're like, oh, this is going to fuck your band up. And I was like, I don't care about my band, man.
Right.
This dude's like, he's not only my best friend, but he's everything to me, man. Like he's kept me from getting in so much trouble. He's helped me become a better version of myself. Like I could never repay him for the shit that he's done in the small amount of time that like we really hung out. And so yeah, I was torn, man, and I hear his mom just put out this really loud, like, guttural scream.
Found him.
They found him.
Both of them?
They found both of them. They found him. Well, I don't know if they found Mike first or they found him, but I know Mike's mom was really upset and being real out, and I'm like, oh, shit. So they found somebody. They brought somebody up on a stretcher. I'm thinking, oh, it's Thomas. I think Mike was found first. If I don't know. It's been so long now, but I think they found Mike, and then his mom, and then eventually they found Thomas.
Same area.
And then they pulled the thing back in a private area around the bridge where nobody was allowed to go with the police. And I just remember his mom walking down there with his father, and then he's keeping it together, but obviously she's really erratic. And then they show, and I just hear this scream, and I'll never forget it. Yeah. Like, it still echoes, like, when I think about it, like, I remember exactly what it sounded like, and her breaking down and shit, and then everybody on the hill, like, all the kids and all the parents of the kids and everybody sitting up on the hill waiting, like, trying to be helpful but stay out of the way. like them knowing, and some people like left, like they just were like, okay, well they found him, it's over. So as they're like packing shit up, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like I just stayed there. In fact, I think after the first few times I drove myself up there with my friend Mike Edwards and whatever, I think my mom dropped us off another time, and then his mom dropped him off, and he met me there. Like, because I didn't feel comfortable driving myself up there because of the emotions and just being withdrawn. Like, but after that, like, I felt so devastated, man. I didn't have any words. I didn't know how to explain anything. Like, I got super quiet. Like, I lost my best friend, and I didn't trust a lot of people then because I was picked on a lot. When I was younger, I was heavier set. I went through phases where I was thin and kind of goofy, you know. And then, but I was thin and I got big, and then I get thin and I get big, and I was bullied a lot growing up. And I was a goofball. Like, I was a class clown. I joked around a lot. Like, I had a sensitive side that I didn't show a lot to people, but, you know, I definitely played around and fucked with people and shit. So I just remember being devastated, and it was fucked, man. Like, they ended up having like a ceremony for him and stuff at the funeral, and like we got together at this fire hall. It was the Woodsboro Fire Hall. Like, after they found him and everything, his parents had like this little like party thing, and I can't remember if it was after the funeral or before the funeral. I want to say maybe it was after the funeral. They had like a thing where we could all come together and like talk about him and shit. So I think it was after the funeral, but they just, I didn't expect anything. I was so withdrawn and so sad, and I locked myself in my room. I wasn't talking to anybody. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't play music. I couldn't do anything. And my friends were hitting me up going, well, we're sorry, man. Like, if you need us, we're there. And I felt alone. Like, even the people I was friends with, like, I felt like they don't know what I'm going through. And I feel weak for telling them, like, how I feel, because they don't, at the time, I don't think they knew how to deal with it. Or maybe it didn't matter to them as much as it mattered to me.
Yeah.
So I got kind of resentful and kind of a dick, and that kind of ruined my friendship with Mike Edwards too, because I kind of like, I don't know, I was kind of an asshole. I was like, I remember one time he was talking about it, and he would bring Thomas up a lot right after all that. Like, he'd be like, you know, man, I miss Tom. And I'm like, you miss Tom? I fucking miss Tom. Like, the dude was with me every day. Like, I know how you feel. Trust me. And I got kind of like resentful and became a dick to him a little bit, and that fucked our friendship up. I said some probably hurtful things because I was just in a bad way. I didn't know how to communicate anymore, and I was just so angry at the world too. And I played the victim thing probably way more than I should have.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to cope. And his parents asked me to be a pallbearer. They asked me to do a speech the day of his funeral. And the fucked up thing was, I was supposed to work for my dad that day. And my dad was a stickler. Like, we all, like, all my siblings worked for him. And he was a tough man to work for. Like, he was good, and he was good to us, but we had to work our asses off. Like, everybody else would work at 100, we had to work at 150%. And he would be on our ass. That's just, you know, the house we grew up in. Well, in high school, I worked for him doing catering. He was running a catering business as a manager, managing weddings and business functions. I worked for him. And on the day of my friend's funeral, he's like, well, I'm going to need you later. What time's his funeral? And I'm like, what? He's like, what time's his funeral? You know, you have to work. Like, I need you. We're short-staffed. I need you. We've got a lot of weddings and shit going on today. I need you. And I'm like, because I would move tables and do other shit that some of the other servers didn't do. There was a lot of women, you know. So they made me do a lot of that kind of shit. So helping the dishwasher guy set up a lot of stuff. And I was like, no, I'm not going to work. Like, I just lost my best friend.
Yeah.
His funeral is today. I'm not in the right place to even think about going to work. And I remember he's like, no, you're gonna fucking go to work. He's like, I need you. You still gotta go on living. Like. And he was such a dick about it, but for me, like, and I look at it now because the shit that followed after and all the years that have gone by. But, so my mom started yelling at him, and she's like, Wayne, a little sympathy. Like, he just lost his best friend. And the backstory on my dad is my dad lost his father when he was 16 and had to grow up. And we talked about that before. Like, so he knew
Yeah.
quite a bit about it, and he's been through a lot. So he was a tough guy because he'd been through so much shit. He had to learn to toughen up.
Right.
And he was a lot more sensitive to shit than anybody in our family really knew. Like me and him are a lot more alike than they probably know now. And he talked to me a lot on his deathbed about stuff, real personal shit that I never knew. Like, and that's like shit I wish I would have known when we started developing a better relationship as I got older. Like stuff I felt he held on to wait to the last minute to tell me. And we would have probably even been even closer and had better like father-son moments had he mentioned a lot of that shit sooner. But my dad knew what was going on, and he was like, no, you're going to work. And my mom was like, well, don't expect him to be there on time. He's supposed to be carrying his friend. You know, they told him he's going to be a pallbearer.
Yeah.
Like, this is a lot for anybody to handle. You know, just ease up on him. So he was pissed off and he went to work. I ended up going to the funeral, and his mom and dad asked me, like, his dad was pretty quiet anyway, but his dad didn't really talk a whole lot to me or anybody really, but his mom asked me to say something. You know, obviously they didn't do an open casket, you know, for obvious reasons. But, yeah, so I went up there, and I wasn't real comfortable talking in front of people, like, especially a lot of people.
Right.
And I went up and I fucking did it. And I can't remember everything I said, but I went into, like, our relationship and the kind of guy he was and the things that were obvious that other people knew about his character and the way he just being around him, like the silly kid he was and just the way he was. And then I shared personal shit, like moments, like maybe 3 or 4 moments of things. And I'm like, I'm never going to have that kind of relationship with somebody ever again. Like, he's never going to be forgotten in my mind, but he's forever gone here.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to miss that kind of shit. And I was like, my life is forever changed. And I don't know what it was about that speech, because I remember my brother being there, and my brother was kind of surprised by like how I handled it, and I did the speech without crying or anything. And I just remember it being a real sweet thing, and a bunch of people were like hugging me and giving me like dude, it was crazy because I knew his family knew a lot of people, and they were close in their neighborhood with a lot of people, and they knew like way more people than I would have ever thought they'd known. But that place was packed, and there were people in and out of there all day long. It almost felt like there were 400 or 500 people, and maybe the community just felt like so heartbroken by that people out of the woodworks just came and showed respect or whatever. But like people I'd never met before, like hundreds of people, just strangers, saying thank you for that speech. It was beautiful and all this stuff, and it's nice to meet his best friend and all this stuff, and you know, you're a really good friend, all this stuff. So it was heartbreaking. And then we did the after like eating thing with his family at the Woodsboro Fire Hall, and there were reporters asking me, like his mom came to me, he's like, these reporters want to talk to you, like about, you know, to say, you know, whatever about Thomas. They want to ask you questions. Yeah. They're doing a story, and like you don't have to say anything, but if you feel like you want to, you can. She's like, you know, but I want to make sure you're okay. I don't want to send you out there and say it's okay without you. And I did. I said some stuff, and they like took some girl he dated, like fucked around with in his neighborhood, like, and she's like, oh yeah, he's my boyfriend and blah blah blah. And I was like, they weren't dating then. And he had a girlfriend, but that wasn't her. Like this other girl lived way far from where we lived, and like they would actually get together. Like she lived up past Middletown somewhere, Boonesboro or something. I think it was Keysville or something like that. But she was like, oh yeah, you know, I this, that, and just saying all this random bullshit. And I was like, that's bullshit. I know, because I was around him all the time.
Yeah.
And so there's all this shit going on, but that fucked me up. And that day, like after we buried him, I went to work for my dad. And I was so withdrawn. Like I was crying throughout the whole time. This wedding's going on. I'm trying to put on this face. And I was so mad at my dad, like so fucking pissed. But I was just so upset. And I remember at the end of dinner service, under the cake, like we would go out and we would eat our meals because we would get meals for working and shit. The kitchen would give us, and this is like good food, like catering stuff. So we're used to eating good shit all the time. And I didn't touch my food at all. I'm just sitting out there crying. Everybody's like, I've never seen Andrew like that. He's always in a good mood. He's always happy. Like, he's so friendly. Like, I feel so bad. He just real sad because they all heard about it. And my dad, like, finally, when I'm alone, like, I'm out there, he's like, dude, it's cleanup time. Like, you need to get back inside. And I'm like, Dad, I don't want to be here. I don't want to, like, I'm so upset. And he finally looked at me. He goes, Andrew, let me tell you something. He goes, I know what you're going through. I know you don't believe that I know what you're going through, but I lost my father, you know. And I had heard some stories as a kid, but we never talked about it a whole lot, like me and him.
Yeah.
It's more stuff I just kind of was brought up at, like, dinner conversation or just my mom talking about my dad's upbringing and stuff. So he goes, I lost my father when I was 16, and back then, you know, a lot of women didn't work. He's like, so it devastated. Like, my dad was a tough man, and you think I'm tough. My dad was really tough. Like, he would slap you around. Like, times were different then.
Yeah.
And he was a really tough man. Like, it didn't take much to set him off. But he, shit, an hour and 32 minutes, my bad. Anyway, to try to speed this up, my dad had a heart-to-heart with me, and I was so mad still, but he spoke the truth. Like, he said the best place for you to be right now is to be working, to get your mind off this stuff. He's like, you're going to hurt. It's going to hurt. It's fucking sad. He's like, but it's also life, and I know you're not going to understand this right now. But someday, like, I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to hurt you and make you more upset. He's like, but you've got to keep working. You got to keep your mind off those things so that you can be strong enough to deal with them when you need to deal with them.
Right.
You know, he's like, sometimes you need time to, like, you need distractions because there's moments you can't handle shit. And he's like, best thing for you is to keep working, is at least you're making money. You're working towards something till a moment where you can have time and reflect on shit. And I didn't quite understand it then. And I just remember being mad at him for a while. So that kind of fucked our relationship up for many years. I mean, I loved my dad, but, like, I was just so resentful towards him for a while there because I didn't understand it. You know, I was just this silly fucking teenager then. So after that, like, I don't know, fucking hurt. But many years later, like, I look back now, I reflect on the life I've had and all the shit that I've been through with my dad, and I'm like, that dude was right. My dad was right about so much shit. Even when he was wrong, his mind was in the right place.
Yeah.
And I just wished I wasn't such a pain in the ass as a teenager towards him and put so much, like, negativity shit towards him and fighting with him and being such a dickhead kid, because there were a lot of moments I was a dick right back. And I regret that because look at it now as a father myself and all this shit. I'm like, damn, like, he was right. And his heart, like, he only meant well. He just didn't know how to, like, communicate that way. Because he was a man of few words.
He told you his way of communicating.
Right. Because he always believed he wasn't a smart man, but he was a worker. The only thing he was good at is working. So growing up, he wasn't around a lot because he worked. That was his way to provide. And I look at it now, I'm like, well, my mom used to get pissed because he wasn't around a lot. And when he was kind of not in a good way. He was always upset or moody, and he was tired. But the dude worked like 100 hours every fucking week. Like, the dude was there all the fucking time work. Sometimes he would stay, like, at work. Like, he had a hotel. He ran a hotel, and he had his own room, like, and he would stay down there busy seasons and stuff because he was like, it was pointless to drive 2-3 hours up the road to go home when I got to be back here again at 3 a.m. I got to be up at, like, 1 a.m. to get a shower and get ready. Like, he was a routine guy. So he would spend a lot of time working, but we always had a roof over our head. Always had an abundance of food. Anything we wanted for Christmas, most of the time we got. And there were 4 of us.
Yeah.
And even though money was could get you, like in the 90s, money was better then, but you didn't make the kind of money you make now salary. Like
Right.
the money's gone up, but inflation and everything, prices on everything has gone up too. But money got you somewhere. But I mean, making the money you did with the house and all this shit, like we were given a lot. So I look at it now and I'm like, shit. Like I don't know how he did it, because my mom worked a little bit too, but my dad was never home. Like he was working himself to that because he felt that was the only thing he was good for. He wasn't good with kids, little kids, and he couldn't deal with stress and all the loud noise and shit. He didn't like that. But he was a great dad. He had his moments, like, but he was just, I look at it now and I'm like, I get it. The dude was depressed. He worked all the fucking time. He felt that this was his only job, was to make money, in hopes that someday he could have some time with my mom and have good moments with us as we got older. But he just wanted to get to the point where he could retire and enjoy a second of his life peaceful doing the shit that he's always wanted to do, that he's put off.
Yeah.
Because he chose to have a family and just do what was best for us. And I look at it now and I'm like, man, I don't know how the fuck. There's days I go to work and I'm like, if I could give my son a fraction of what my mom and dad gave me, I'll be blessed, because like we had everything. And you don't realize what you have as a kid until you get older, and you're like, you have friends or you meet people and you're like, wow, like compared to them, I was spoiled. Like
Yeah.
I had all this shit. Like these people, like I'm living under a rock. Like I'm thinking in the 90s, oh, everybody's got this. No, not everybody's got that same shit. So I'm sorry for this long drawn out story. I don't know, man. I just felt like I had to tell it because it kind of hit on that. But yeah.
No, that's good.
Rest in peace, Thomas. I still I haven't talked to his family in a while. Like we kind of lost contact there for a while, and then we caught up a few years ago. His brother went into the Navy. Real smart fucking kid, like way smarter than us. Real straight shooter too. Like he was in like all those youth programs for like military kids and stuff, like ROTC and shit. Really brilliant kid. And I took him out before he went into the Navy. But the girl he was dating at the time, Jen and I took him out to dinner one night. We talked quite a bit. We would go hiking and stuff. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but amazing family. I love him. Even though I don't talk to him every day, we've lost contact, but I hope they're doing well. They're great people, very loving, they've become way more religious now as time has gone on, but they're lovely people. And they're the kind of people who give you the shirt off their back, would do anything, but they're going to tell you, like, get your shit together.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, so they're just, I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm sorry I drew this one out. It's
It's all good, man.
we're at an hour and
Obviously, you
38.
needed it.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Like
That's good. That's good.
I think I brought it up because I had, when you talked about dreams earlier, after my friend Thomas died, I think this is where I was getting to, is that I had a dream, a very vivid fucking dream in my parents' house, where I woke up out of the dream and I remembered it, everything about it. And he sat at the bed, like up towards where my pillow was. I had this outer body experience where I'm behind the wall looking down at my head, my body laying in the bed. And he's sitting next to me and he's got his hand on my shoulder and he goes, everything's going to be all right. Because I was just in such a fucked up way. And like, it was vivid. Like I saw his face, like everything about him detail wise, like I'll never forget. And I have an attention to detail anyway. Like, but in a dream to like remember it, a dream, because I don't remember all my dreams, but there's certain times, like certain things have happened. I've dreamt things and I remember them. And I remember things like shit, like when I was a kid. I can't remember what I ate a few weeks ago.
Right.
I can't remember certain things, but I can remember like shit from when I was real young, like in vivid detail. Like, and I could tell you today, like it happened yesterday. And other people who witnessed it or could remember would be like, that's exactly how it, happened. So I had that dream and it was just so fucking real. I remember waking crying, and then I had another one that was different, but I remember telling his mom about it, and she started crying, but she was like, I've got to tell you something. She had a dream, and they had this house. I don't know if it was a pre-build or whatever. It was kind of like a trailer, but it wasn't a trailer. Like it was like those modded houses where
Like
they
a prefab type
yeah,
shit.
yeah. Well, his parents' room, like you'd come in the front door, and his parents' room was like right there to the left side. If you're looking in from the front yard, his parents are on the left side. The doors, like the front door or the back door, I should say, they use the back door as the front door because you'd walk around when you parked your car in the gravel. And then the kitchen was right there, right across from his parents' room, and then they had this living room and this dining room area, and it was like pretty much one big living room thing. And then his little brother's room was all the way in the back to the right, across, like all the way across the whole thing from his parents' room. And then Thomas's room was in the front, and I think there was like a little bathroom attached in between the two little rooms. Well, my friend had this stereo, and what we had made a demo of our shitty little punk rock music that when we were first starting out. We were all proud of ourselves and shit. And I think we had like 2 or 3 songs at that point. And they were like crappy songs, but they were like to us, we thought we were so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And he would play a lot of music, and he had this big old fucking stereo in his room. And it was funny because after he died, his mom was searching through his room and found like pot and shit. She was questioning me about it. I was like, well, I don't do it. I've tried it, but I don't do it like that. But yes, he did it, you know. But he was always like when we were around, like I was always like, man, don't do that shit. Like he was kind of like, I mean, he would test the waters, but he wasn't like out. He wasn't crazy about it. Like he just did it and chilled. But I was like, she was going through her room, but she had this dream. Well, this is the thing. She said it wasn't a dream. She said that she had some weird dreams, but she said one night she was in bed sleeping and they were out, and this is like 3 o'clock in the morning. And she hears this noise. And she's like, what? Is that music playing? She's like, that's fucking weird. And she's like, it was fainted, but it was up enough that she's like, oh shit, well, it's going to wake up Philip, his little brother. So she goes and she's like kind of hesitant, doesn't really want to go there, but she's like, I got to turn that shit off. It's going to wake Philip up, and he's a little kid. He was like 5 or 6. She's like, he won't go back to sleep. Like, he'll be, you know, scared and shit. She's like, she goes over there, and she goes into his room and turns it off. She's like, yeah, it was your fucking CD playing. Like, it just turned on, started playing. She's like, I figured maybe it was already on, and maybe for whatever reason it just played. She's like, I turned it off, went back. I'm just getting back into bed, and I'm starting to go to sleep, and it turned, like, it's playing the music again. She's like, it freaked me the fuck out. She's like, I got up again, I went over there, and I turned that fucking shit off, and this time I pulled the fucking cord out of the wall. She's like, that shit was off. The cord was out of the wall. She's like, it's not going to happen again. She goes back to bed. Kind of same thing. She's finally getting back to sleep. Like she's about to really fall asleep. It was playing louder. So that freaked her the fuck out. But she's like, maybe that's a sign that he knows. Like it's his way of saying, hey, things are all right. You know? I think as they started finding more faith, that's kind of like what it grew into. But she was like fucking freaked out about it. She told me that, and I was like, oh shit. Like, thank God that didn't happen to me, because that would have freaked me out.
That's some kind of like the crow shit. Like
then one night, she woke up in the middle of the night because she heard his little brother, and she walks out and the TV's on, and he's playing this BMX like PlayStation 2 or 1. I think it was PlayStation 2 because he had one. And they were playing this BMX game that I guess he would always play. And then his brother, he would sometimes let his brother, because he was really good with playing with his little brother. And they were playing it, like he's out there talking to somebody. She's like, who? She's like, Philip, it's late. She's like, you need to be in bed. Like it's early in the morning, like it's past midnight, but it's like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
It's like, you need to be in bed. Who are you talking to? And he goes, I'm talking to Thomas. Like we're playing this game. And that freaked her the fuck out. She's like, yeah, he was out there sitting on like Indian style, playing video games, talking to somebody. She told me she was talking to Thomas. Like, yeah. So she told me about that, and I was like, oh shit. Well, you know, kids, they say kids can see things and shit. I was like, yeah. So I don't know. Some of those things, like when you brought up the dreams, like I've had dreams that I've seen shit
Yeah, you
like,
definitely took it to
awake.
like a whole nother fucking
Yeah, I've seen shit,
level.
but I've also like dreamt shit and it like be so vivid. And recently, man, like I'll get into the whole. No, there's other shit that happened recently, but it's and it's still kind of ongoing, so it's kind of nervous. Like it's got me nervous right now, because this individual that it's about like is not doing very well, and in this particular dream, like
This is what we talked about before, right?
yeah, like
yeah,
this
yeah.
particular dream like made it seem like something's coming. Like and
Yeah,
it's
let's not
happening.
even- yeah.
So we'll get in that another time. But I'm so sorry for making
Nah,
this.
I ain't, what
And
is
this was
that
some
thing?
real shit. Like normally we're
Like
goofy
an hour
and funny,
40
but
some shit. Nah, it's cool.
yeah,
Yeah, let's take a break.
that was heavy.
This overall is so comfortable, except when you're sitting down. I guess because it's all one piece, so it's pulled up into my fucking nuts. So I've been like,
That's nice. This chair's hurting my ass.
all right, so we'll take a break and we'll hit another episode, and we won't go so deep. We'll stay.
Yeah, we'll try to
some
stay
kinda
lighthearted this time.
stupefied.
That's my bad. I don't know, man. I just had to feel like I got it out. You hit some things earlier.
Nah,
I was
and like I could see you telling it. I mean, I wasn't gonna tell you to shut the fuck up.
you're like, hey, man, take a fucking break.
wrap this shit up. Nah, I'm just kidding. Nah, it's good to let it out, and yeah, man.
So, like I was saying earlier before we leave,
I don't think that you should do that on this episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Just because-
we'll leave it out. That was.
I mean, if you're gonna stay serious, I don't think you want a fucking counter above your head.
there is gonna be a counter. in
Plus,
future episodes.
honestly, I don't think you said it a lot.
I did say it a few times.
but more when you got into more detail and thinking of your thoughts more. You
It's
did
more careful. Yeah.
This counter would be well, one, you shouldn't have a counter on this story anyway.
Yeah.
It means the most to you, but I'm sure within the next however long we start this next
hour.
episode, I'm sure you'll get your fucking likes in for the evening.
Yeah. So going forward, there will be like a game with this where
There
you're
will
gonna
be like a like.
drinking or smoking anytime we say like. Anytime I say sure or yeah, or we're gonna have like those and stuff like that. There'll be a counter above my head, and we're gonna count throughout. And every time we do that, you have to take a drink, or ever so many, you're gonna have to drink. So for kids, water, whatever.
No,
Or-
fuck
or-
that.
yeah,
drink
just alcohol.
whatever. Who gives a fuck? All right, let's call this one, and then
Yep.
we'll take a break. And
So
I'm gonna I gotta change because I can't.
look like Luigi.
No, fuck you. My Luigi outfit. It was comfortable, but I guess this onesie for a fucking adult. I don't know. Fuck you. All right,
Yeah.
go ahead. Let's cut this
Yeah,
shit.
so,
and we'll be back.
So thanks for listening into Will's Fuckery, the train wreck, and we really appreciate all the love and support.
Oh yeah, I guess we gotta say something because this.
We'll
is
do
gonna
it.
be
We'll
an
do one of
episode.
those outro videos that we like so much. We'll put one of those on there. But thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next episode. See ya. Peace.
Thank you.
Nice. So, if you were watching episode 7, it's pretty dear to my heart. It's about my friend Thomas, who passed away when I was in high school. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching. We hope it's entertaining or it helps some people out there. Not every episode's going to be a depressing one or a funny one or whatever. We just like to have some conversations and just talk about shit, as Will says. And yeah, we hope you liked it. So if you did and you made it this far, please like and subscribe. Leave comments. We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming to the channel within the next year. And more stuff with the podcast. And we'll have some newer like side things that we'll be doing. But the next episode we're going to get into, stay tuned for that. Episode 8, it's going to be about like classic movies. Movies that we both grew up on. We get into like talking about that, and then Will actually talks about a time he took a trip to LA and Las Vegas, and we'll have photos and all sorts of cool stuff like to share on that episode. So again, thanks for all the love and the support, and yeah, just share it with friends, share it, and yeah, I guess help us get out there a little bit, and we'll be bringing more awesome content your way. But thanks, and peace.